Welcome to Animation Debate, on our section Best Ofs, where we explore what I consider to be a show's greatest asset. Today, we are focusing on Attack on Titan's mastery at world building. Let me start with this preface. While Attack on Titan initially captured me with precisely its world building, and hey, it's giant zombies and swords, what's not to love? It started losing me at a certain point, and from which it mostly went downhill from there. I'm trying to keep this video spoiler-free for most of it, so stick to the end if you want to know more about my take on this. That being said, I got to admit that I'm still amazed at how this story immersed me from the get-go, and how much the anime scene changed after that series. Gotta commend as well how much it fascinated audiences and readers, from long-term anime fans to newcomers, since I know that not liking the series all the way through, if not unpopular, it is at least a controversial and divided opinion. So join me in this analysis about what I think Attack on Titan did an incredible job on. This series understood from the start that world building isn't architecture, it's atmosphere. While being a very complex narrative infrastructure, it first strives to set a mood for what is about to come instead of focusing on explaining and justifying every little detail. We have to define what will be the criteria for reviewing this element of the story, and then I'll give some examples to illustrate my point. Not necessarily in order of importance, it'll be judged by our 7 C's. Concept. Is it well thought out? Does it have originality? Consistency. The world has a clear set of rules, whether for magic, technology, or natural laws, and these rules are followed consistently to maintain believability. Consequential. Details about the world, its history, geography, and culture should have a tangible effect on the plot, characters, and themes. It's not just a backdrop, but an active element of the narrative. Character-driven perspective. Descriptions of the world are more immersive when filtered through the unique perspective of a character. This allows the world to be revealed organically, while also developing the character's personality and attitudes. Continuity. The world feels like it existed before the story began and will continue after it ends. This is achieved through a deep history, varied cultures, and specific, often small details that hint at a larger reality. Cause. Every element of the world, from a unique animal to a regional superstition, has a purpose and adds to the overall feeling or theme of the story, rather than just being included to be different or follow a trope. And finally, carefully detailed. It seeks to be engaging in all 5 senses. Sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch makes the fictional world feel more real and immersive. I was a sucker for Attack on Titan's concept from the very beginning. It is basically taking a medieval-esque epic and adding a zombie apocalypse that's already happened and has apparently been going on for as long as anyone can remember. So as far as concept goes, I think it is a very novel mix of ideas, and it is hard to argue otherwise after seeing the great impact it had. It also incorporated a lot of details that contributed greatly to its initial hook, but we'll go over those later. I must recognize, though, that I love the fact that while I usually think of a show as the world building is contradicting itself, the concept and mystery behind the story made me think instead, what if the contradictions are the world building? Let's close this first C as a 10 out of 10. Now we're getting to consistency, and this one is trickier than it seems, especially if I'm to keep my promise of making the video spoiler-free for most of it. That is why I'll focus on one of those important details I was talking about before, that is very consistent and brought on at several points to explain it further. The ODM gear, or 3D maneuver gear, and the blade system they used to deal with the Titans. This is one of the series' greatest hits if you ask me. It gives the world a steampunk vibe and makes you wonder if the contrast in technology is because of the actual needs of that world or if there's something else going on, which adds to the mystery while also creating a staple that helps Attack on Titan be unforgettable. Still avoiding to reveal other details just yet for those of you that might not have watched or read all the way through, I just want to note that while Attack on Titan was initially very careful and detail-oriented with its consistency, it seems as if the author stopped caring at a certain point about it. For the start of the series, we have another 10 out of 10. At the end, it was more of a 4 out of 10, so we'll average and give it a 7 out of 10 for this C. We'll try something different and go for a 2-in-1, since they're very intrinsically related for this case. It is definitely consequential and has a great character-driven perspective since the whole world is very well built around the concept. It shapes all the main and side characters' not just motives, but also their personalities, quirks, trials, opportunities. If we're going by feel, it has an interesting premise. The aesthetics and references take a lot from Germany, but it's close, but not quite. It's almost like what German culture would look like if someone was recreating it from partial memory. This happens all throughout the show. Store signs, military documents, background text. It's all pseudo-European languages. Not the languages themselves, but copies of copies of copies, degraded through generations of oral tradition and selective memory wiping. The world inside the walls isn't an original civilization that developed naturally. It's a constructed nostalgia theme park. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The fashion doesn't progress. It's static, frozen in a specific aesthetic that someone decided represented the old world. The technology advances in weird, non-linear ways because it feels like they're not inventing, they're remembering. Someone remembers that cannons exist, so they build cannons. But they can't remember how internal combustion engines work, so they don't exist yet. That sort of vibe. The world feels off because it's supposed to feel off. Isayama built an entire civilization on top of cultural amnesia, and the cracks in the world building are actually the foundation. I could go on and on. But I also want to add that the mystery is very well incorporated. Everyone acts like they might be the Harbinger, and I'm all for it. No doubt, 10 out of 10 for both. This took me a while to fully accept, but let's say it gets full marks for continuity. No issues with it having a deep background, and at the end, it makes several remarks regarding continuity that make it definitely be there. Love it or hate it, I hate it, and you'll probably hate me for it, but I digress, it is there. Another thing that could be argued is that the economy makes no sense. Humanity is trapped in a closed system. They've been behind walls for 100 years. How is there still capitalism? How do you have wealth inequality in a siege situation? Why isn't everything rationed? Where's the centralized government control that would obviously develop in this scenario? And most damning, who's funding the Survey Corps? They lose 30% of their soldiers on every expedition. The equipment costs are astronomical, awfully complex machinery, and the blades break constantly. They bring back zero economic value, no resources, no territory, no trade goods, just dead bodies and trauma. What government would fund this for 100 years? From a pure resource allocation standpoint, the Survey Corps are insane. Unless the government isn't trying to achieve what they claim they're trying to achieve. And that's why it still retains the same grade. You could put the economy to the test, but those inconsistencies aren't bugs, they're features. Everything that doesn't make sense just adds to the mystery about what this world actually is. Can I still call it spoiler-free for this part? I believe so, but soft spoiler warning just in case. A great deal about what I consider to be the weakest factors for Attack on Titan boils down to elements or plot points that end up going nowhere, so I can't go any higher than 5 out of 10 for this category. Last but not least, I think it is very carefully detailed and I'd be hard-pressed to be arguing against it. It goes to a great length to add little bits like Sasha's eating habits that definitely make the world feel more real and immersive while playing with the senses. Full marks one more time for Attack on Titan, 10 out of 10.
After tallying up, the world building gets an average of about 8.85. We could even round it up to a 9. So in conclusion, it has top-notch world building, which is even more impressive when you consider how complex the narrative is. It's no wonder the huge impact this show had. Now for the part I fully expect to be bashed on, and the one where I should put a full spoiler warning for those who haven't finished the show. Why did the story end up losing me and I hated the ending? I can pretty much summarize it like this. After the enemy stopped being the Titans and now went full geopolitical conflict and propaganda, the show seemed to stop caring. It would seem as if the author was tired of explaining such a complex world, and I don't blame him. But why keep introducing such complex elements if you won't address them further? Why introduce and rely on a time is not linear, time-traveling-esque type plot if you're not fully explaining it? Some characters had to die, while others get to be saved. It has to be this way, the show keeps insisting. But we never know why, and there is no logic behind most of it. Whatever the acronyms are,
They're not consistent in what they can do, how they do it, why they do it. The biggest example is sometimes they're affected by the founding titan and sometimes they aren't. So the only rules are they are what the plot needs them to be, regardless of what could be stated as a fact before and after. And speaking of being whatever the plot needs, paths. If the reasoning is, it's magic, I ain't gotta explain it, why pretend it's a complex thing with a set of rules when it isn't? Lots of plot points really went nowhere, particularly those regarding the royal family. And my biggest qualm, by the end, the lack of real rules, structure, consequences amounted to the ending feeling rushed and empty. 80% of the population was wiped out. And you could say 50, 99, 87.5, whatever percent, and it wouldn't matter. There's nothing left. Only the walls are Titans meme. If you want me to make a video regarding this topic to more depth, let me know. I would also like to know what you think. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more.